So the cars line up on the grid for round 2 of the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. The grid is based on the result from race 1, which means that the dominant race winner, Alan Henderson, is going to line up on the pole position alongside Simon Goddard, who snatched that second place at the death from JJ Clements, who lines up third. Liam Murphy is fourth, and we're looking to get through the first lap without pointing the wrong way in front of the whole pack this time around. James Aspinall is on the third row alongside John Davies, Adam Brindle, George Lyne, and then Will Chappell and Jack Harding round out the top 10. But towards the back of the field, we are hoping to see James Blake Baldwin, but it looks as though he may not be on the grid for this race at all after his mechanical drama took him out of the opening race. So a disastrous start to the season for him, but Alan Henderson looking now to make it the perfect start to his season. He starts from pole in the white car with the grey and black 46 of Simon Goddard alongside. Who will make the start this time, I wonder, as away we go. It's very evenly matched indeed from both front row men. John Davies with a good start from the third row of the grid as the rush down towards Copse Corner begins. Staller further back, but everyone is now away and through the right-hander at Copse now. They got through Copse last time without any dramas. Let's hope they can get through Beckett's as well. Was it Henderson or Goddard that led? It's Henderson that's held onto the lead, and it's Clements second with Murphy third. So Goddard had a poor run through Copse Corner, down to fourth place. Aspinall is fifth. Then that's Adam Brindle sixth, and John Davies alongside him on the outside line through Beckett's. Jonathan Greensmith's got himself into the top 10 as well, which is good to see. On board with Alan Henderson. Now, is that waving someone through or telling someone to work with him, I wonder? I think he's telling JJ Clements to work with him as they head into Brooklands for the first time. Murphy third, Goddard fourth, contact further back. That's the 55 car of George Lyne clattering into the side of John Davies, and Adam Brindle spins. And that looks like Jonathan Greensmith, it was. So Brindle is the one that this time suffers a first lap spin, and it's Jonathan Greensmith who has to take avoiding action over the grass. They both continue, but down at the back of the field. So again, two potential front runners in trouble early on. On board with Will Chappell in the Concord Motorsport car. Oh, and in front of him, that was contact between James Aspinall and George Lyne. George Lyne in the black car goes through, but Will Chappell had a grandstand view of a moment that was slightly too close for comfort on the run down into Copse Corner. We hope that Aspinall survived. Yes, he did. He's still in behind Will Chappell, but up at the front, Henderson has a 0.175 second lead over JJ Clements. Now, in the first race, the gap was already nearly 2 seconds at the end of the first lap, so I think this time, with Henderson at the moment unable to escape, we're in for a much closer contest for the race win. Liam Murphy is third with Goddard fourth. Further back, that is car number 15, which is Andrew Caird, with Jack Harding looking to try and find a way through in the red 195 car. Just behind them is Daniel Irving, Alan Henderson's AK Automotive teammate, who again is having a good showing early on here. Then it's Russell Tamplin and Justin Newnham just in behind them. 2 laps completed then, and again a typically breathless opening couple of laps. Things just starting to settle down now as they head down towards Copse Corner for the third time. As ever with the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup, 20-minute races. We've got 18 laps in the first race, so we'd expect a similar amount in race 2. Down towards Beckett's they go. Will Chappell goes up the inside of James Aspinall. Good move. And John Davies in the silver 33 car is keeping a watching brief just behind them. But out in front, Alan Henderson and JJ Clements are starting to pull away. They are working together. You can see that JJ Clements is not moving from the wheel tracks of Alan Henderson. Alan Henderson. He's more than close enough to make a move, but is choosing not to. Look at George Lyne up the inside of Simon Goddard, into the side of Simon Goddard, who has armfuls of opposite lock as he tries to gather it together at Brooklands. He does gather it together, but George Lyne is sort of muscling his way through the field. It's a rather robust drive, this, from George, but it's effective nonetheless, and it gets him into fourth place. Simon Goddard won't be best pleased with that one. He loses a spot in the Blendini prepared car. Further back, Will Chappell defending from James Aspinall and John Davies still, but look at this, tied together at the head of the field are Alan Henderson and JJ Clements, both running exactly the same lap times, exactly the same racing lines as well. Liam Murphy is on his own in third. He's trying to go with them, but by working together, Henderson and Clements are stretching away. Look at this group. This is encompassing most of the positions towards the back end of the top 10. And it's John Davies at the inside of Will Chappell at Beckett's, on board with Will now in the Concorde Motorsport car. Gets elbowed out over the curbs rather unceremoniously, but he'll hold the inside line down towards Beckett's, look to the right-hand side, as indeed Will Chappell looks to the right-hand side to see who's attacking on the outside line. It's John Davies who gets his whole car ahead, but Chappell is very late on the brakes into the left-hander. Great on-board shots here. John Davies chops across our bows, and there's a little bit of a love tap between the two of them, and then another one as Will Chappell tries to find a way back ahead, but he can't quite make it stick. Now we could see he was nowhere near the apex. That's because he had Andrew Caird alongside him, and now Will Chappell is getting elbowed out wide. Jack Harding gets up the inside of him as well, heading through Woodcote Corner, easily flat out through there in these Mazda MX-5s, and down towards the right-hander at Copse Corner, which is somewhat more of a challenge. Through the right-hander they go. Can Chappell finally get back in line? Yes, he can. Just in front of James Aspinall, who, don't forget, in race 1 finished 6th place, but he's had a few dramas early on in this second race and has found himself dropping down the order. On board with Will Chappell, that is James Aspinall to our left-hand side, but he can't quite make the move stick at Beckett's. Tries to get the switch back on the exit to get to the right-hand side of the road down towards Brooklands. Couldn't make that stick either, and Daniel Irving in the 89 car is getting involved in that scrap too. Simon Goddard, it looks like, has just found a way back ahead of George Lyne. So George Lyne in the black number 55 car relinquishes the 4th place he gained a lap ago, and in fact drops quite a way behind Simon Goddard as well. So Simon will try and break the toe and head off after Liam Murphy in 3rd place. 14 minutes and change left on the clock then. Out through Woodcote Corner they go. Will Chappell in the green and black car, just ahead of James Aspinall. Just in front of them is the Jack Harding and Andrew Caird scrap. Caird defending the line into Copse Corner. Harding tries to get the switch back. Can't quite manage that one though, and so sits in the slipstream down towards Beckett's, where you see an awful lot of out-braking manoeuvres. Anyone going to make one this lap? No, they all stay more or less single file. Will Chappell now bringing himself onto the tail of that fight along with Aspinall. And the 89 car of Dan Irving just behind. Race leaders down at Brooklands. Still no move being made by JJ Clements. Now, if he's being sensible about this, he'll wait another few laps before he makes his move, and wait until they've built up a slightly larger cushion over the rest of the field, and then try and move through. I think he realises that even if he can get past Alan Henderson, his chances of escaping are pretty slim, so in a way there's not much need in rushing this one. He can pick and choose his moment and try and time it perfectly for the end of the race. Oh, Will Chappell's been off. That is at Luffield, and judging by the crumpled front right corner, he's had contact. The onboard camera will show us what happens. Oh, contact in front for Jack Harding, who gets spun right in front of Will Chappell, who had nowhere to go. It was Andrew Caird who got into the back of Jack Harding, spun him across the front of the completely innocent Will Chappell. And a lot of damage for, in particular, Harding and Chappell, so that may be their race done. Back on board with Alan Henderson. Despite, no doubt, feeling the pressure from JJ Clements, he's maintaining his very smooth driving style. Gary Townsend there in the 223 car. First sight we've seen of the Townsend Motorsport car. Series sponsor for 2015, and having had to start from the back after a qualifying penalty, he's working his way through the field quite nicely, on board with Justin Newnham there in the 68 car briefly. Down towards Brooklands comes the James Aspinall John Davies scrap. Just behind, Dan Irving is starting to come under a little bit of pressure as well, so this is now a quartet of cars heading out of Luffield Corner once more. Looks like that's Andy Coombs, who was caught up in the first lap shenanigans in race 1, and it's taken him until nearly halfway through race 2 to get himself up towards the back end of the top 10. Adam Brindle is next in behind. Adam Brindle, remember, spun on the first lap at Brooklands and is absolutely one to keep an eye on as he charges through the field. Silverstone National Circuit is one of the better racetracks in the country for overtaking. Not many corners, but you can overtake at most of them. And that was Andy Coombs going up the inside and doing just that at Beckett's. Oh, but then runs out too wide over the curb and will lose the position straight back to Dan Irving on the exit of the corner. So Briefly, he was up a position. They're now side by side, in fact, heading down underneath the bridge on the Wellington Straight. John Davies trying to find a way past James Aspinall. Doesn't even look to the inside line into Brooklands, though. Andy Coombs did manage to make that move stick despite his scrappy exit from Brooklands. So Dan Irving in behind, on board with Justin Newnham, going up the inside of Gary Townsend and making that one stick. In front you can see Russell Tamplin in the white, red and yellow machine. And Jonathan Greensmith in between them. Also in that scrap is car number 74, Ben Webster. He also finds a way past Gary Townsend as further back the ever-exciting Michael Lawson launches an attack up the inside into Brooklands. That car's getting increasingly dog-eared as the day goes on, but he's certainly having a lot of fun out there in his Blendini prepared car. Now back on board with Alan Henderson, and we finally have the challenge for the race lead for JJ Clements. At near enough exactly half race distance, he's up the inside line, but the back marker ahead is giving Henderson the slipstream. They both go inside the slower car, and JJ Clements, it looks like, may make this stick. Yes, he does. So, new race leader. For the first time today, it is not Alan Henderson who's going to lead a lap, because it looks like JJ Clements, if he can hold on from now to the stripe, will lead his first lap of the day. And as I say, we've now just ticked over into the second half of this second race of the day. Ooh, Henderson immediately goes back on the attack, though, as he forces JJ Clements to defend down into Copse Corner. Swings out wide, right over the curb. So, game on now then in the fight for the race lead. In race 1, Henderson was able to stretch away after the early dramas behind him, but not the case in race 2. Back with Michael Lawson, who has a huge spin on the run down into Beckett's. And, hold my breath, yes, he is avoided by Andy Bailey, who was the car he was trying to overtake. That was a very strange incident, that, for Michael Lawson. But he goes grass tracking and luckily continues without incurring any more damage to his car. Back on board with Alan Henderson, who for the first time today has someone to look at out of his windscreen. And now he's looking at him from his left-hand side because he's trying to go around the outside of JJ Clements into Brooklands. Takes the wide line in. You can see the extra momentum he's able to carry on the exit, and he'll try and do the same again through the long right-hander at Luffield. Use the curb on the apex to try and hook the car around and then tuck into the slipstream and perhaps have an attack down into Copse Corner. Great fight this is between two of the front runners in the Mark 1 Championship last year. Side by side again down towards Copse Corner. Outside line for Henderson, inside for JJ Clements. Again, though, it's going to be the switchback move that Henderson is looking for. Thumbs up, he's enjoying this one. Having a little bit more fun in this second race than he did this morning. Down towards Beckett's they go. Looking down the order, you can see John Davies and Andy Coombs have both got past James Aspinall now. Dan Irving 9th and Adam Brindle's back into the top 10 in his number 16 Paul Sheard racing car. Down the Wellington Straight, and JJ Clements weaving this way and that. Alan Henderson waggling his finger to show just what he thinks of those sort of tactics. Goes to the outside line again into Brooklands. But Clements is not going to give him the inside line, but he slides out a little bit too wide that time through Brooklands. And you can go around the outside of Luffield, but not this time for Alan Henderson. And he will stay in the wheel track to JJ Clements. But whilst Clements, for the first half of the race, was pretty content to sit behind Henderson, Henderson is absolutely determined to get that lead back. Here's the third place fight, and it is now George Lyne who has third, with Liam Murphy fourth. So that has been a change around. Simon Goddard is fifth right behind them. Through the quick right-hander at Copse Corner they go. Murphy not really having the weekend he'd have hoped for. He would certainly have been expecting to at least be in the mix for a race win here at Silverstone. But it looks like he's going to have to settle for a fourth place in race 1 and challenge perhaps for a podium in race 2. But he loses another place now to Simon Goddard, who moves into fourth place. Murphy down to fifth. There's John Greensmith, with Gary Townsend still right behind him. Justin Newnham is the man leading that little quartet. Greensmith goes up the inside of Ben Webster. That's a good little move on the inside line into the right-hander at Beckett's. Ooh, Webster gets it all out of shape over the curbs. A replay here of Justin Newnham and how he got ahead of both Jonathan Greensmith and Ben Webster. It was around the outside at Brooklands. Gives him the inside line for Luffield, and that was some pretty good driving there for Justin Newnham. Back out onto the pit straight. 6 minutes remain in round 2 of the 2015 BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship. Through Copse they go. This is the fight for 3rd, 4th and 5th positions, and it looks like Simon Goddard is the one who got the best run through Copse corner. He goes on the attack to try and find a way past George Line. There was room down the inside into Beckett's, but Simon opted against that one, looking instead for the run out of the corner. These two have already made contact in this race. Simon Goddard will be keen to find a way back through. Back on board with Justin Newnham. Now, we commented before about Alan Henderson's silky smooth driving style. The opposite lock shown by Justin Newnham suggesting he's having a slightly harder time of controlling his MX-5, but he's managing to produce the results so far. He's pulling away now from the fight behind him between Webster, Greensmith and Townsend. Further up the road, this is James Aspinall, John Davies and the recovering Adam Brindle. So John Davies is now the man who finds himself in a Paul Sheard sandwich. Aspinall runs a little bit deep, and then John Davies clatters into the side of him and spins across the road and onto the grass. So a little bit of a miscommunication there perhaps, as all 3 cars tried to slot into the same piece of tarmac, and it's John Davies that comes off worse. Adam Brindle's been right in the thick of all of the drama in this race, hasn't he? But he's managed to pick his way into the top 10. It's Clements leading from Henderson, not escaping though, so those two still tied together. George Line, Simon Goddard and Liam Murphy fighting for 3rd. And then this is the fight for 6th between Aspinall, Brindle and then Irving and Coombs we're watching there, 8th and 9th, with Russell Tamplin rounding out the top 10. It's been an all-action race for the SuperCup here at Silverstone, and there are still 4 and a bit minutes to go. Adam Brindle's car showing a few signs of contact from the 2 races here today. He's still going quickly. He goes to the outside line on the 20 car of James Aspinall down towards Brooklands. Aspinall drifts out a little bit wide. Brindle gets up alongside. No way through there. Again tries the switch back. Tries not to run into the back of his teammate's car. And they're now absolutely being caught by the 2 behind. Dan Irving and Andy Coombs. Out across the stripe they go, 3.5 minutes to go. Russell Tamplin on his own just behind them. Brindle goes up the inside into Copse corner. He was a bit too far back there, and that could compromise his exit speed down towards Beckett's, and watch for Dan Irving to perhaps launch an attack. But no, it's actually a mistake for James Aspinall, which loses him that position to Adam Brindle, and perhaps he may drop to the back of that group altogether. Side by side once more for the race lead, but still Clements refuses to yield the inside line to Alan Henderson, so Alan is continuing to be frustrated and unable to find a way through, and he's running out of laps with only 3 minutes left on the clock. They literally could not be closer as they head out of Luffield that time around. George Line, it looks like he's still 3rd ahead of Murphy and Goddard. Out across the stripe they go once more. Not even bothering to swing out to the outside of the road out of Woodcote are the 2 leaders, because Clements knows he's going to have to defend down into Copse corner, then snatches the racing line back away from Henderson at the last second. A replay of the big moment for both the race leaders. That's why they were closer together than previously. That was, guess who, Michael Lawson, who'd had a spin at Beckett's. And luckily the 2 leaders just about avoided him. Back out onto the Wellington Straight, there is more traffic ahead. You can see JJ Clements trying to use the slipstream for the back marker to stretch away from Henderson, and it's working. You can see visibly there the extra straight line speed it gives him down towards Brooklands. Slips up the inside. That's Ray Worley who is being put a lap down now in the RS Computers Universal Cabling sponsored car. But it is still JJ Clements that leads the way, and I reckon we're going to get 2 more laps out of this one. So 2 more laps for Henderson to try and find a way past JJ Clements. A task he's not been able to perform throughout the race so far, because JJ is stubbornly holding on to the inside line. Look at this group. Meanwhile, Justin Newnham has now been caught again by Ben Webster, who goes up the inside. Behind, Gary Townsend is muscling Jonathan Greensmith out wide. Jonathan says, "Oh no you don't," and slips through on the inside. And in behind them, John Munro, who is a novice, one of 4 novices in the championship this year in the number 23 car. Leaders are back at Beckett's. Again, Henderson tries to get that switch back down the Wellington straight, and he might just do it this time. He's got right the way alongside. He'll get his nose ahead as they head down the straight, but he's on the wrong side of the road. And it's very, very difficult to go around the outside into Brooklyn. We've seen Clements good on the brakes here all weekend long. They're pretty even Stevens as they turn in, but Clements knows that he can't afford to run in too deep. Slides across the bows of Alan Henderson and holds on to the race lead once more. They're about to start the final lap, and Henderson showing his frustration there. Maybe a little bit of paint traded on the apex of the right-hander at Luffield, but as they start the final lap, it is all down to whether Alan Henderson can find a way past JJ Clements. It's not going to be easy. There's back markers ahead which could come into play as well, one of which looks like is Andy Bailey in the yellow and orange car. Flapping rear bodywork on Clements' car as a bit of a witness mark from some contact earlier on. Henderson tries to get the run out of Cop's corner but can't do it. 6 in the slipstream once more down towards the right-hander at Beckett's, and they are going to catch the back markers potentially down the Wellington straight. Let's hope they've seen the blue flags and they move out of the way. Oh no, they get right in the way of JJ Clements, who runs very wide over the curve, and that really has balked his run onto the straight. But now Alan Henderson's the one stuck behind the back markers. This is all going to get very tight indeed down towards Brooklands. Henderson has to let Clements go, then dives to the inside line. 2 corners to go, and Clements somehow hangs on, and now he's got a back marker between them. The back marker is Henry Lawson in another Blendini Motorsport car, and although Henderson does now clear Henry into Luffield corner, I think he's going to run out of time. He's going to sit in the slipstream and try and get the run to the flag. Who is going to win round number 2 of the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup here at Silverstone? It looks like it's going to be JJ Clements. Henderson pulls out of the slipstream but can't do it. What a race, but it is indeed going to be JJ Clements that snatches the win. Alan Henderson's 2nd place. George Lyne hangs on for 3rd, and it's Simon Goddard 4th with Liam Murphy 5th. Look at these fights further down. This is the Greensmith, Townsend, Newnham and Monroe scrap. Greensmith's going to get the better of them by the looks of it. Then Townsend was going to be side by side out of Luffield between John Monroe and Justin Newnham. Monroe gets sideways, and so Jeff Gurrier buys into it as well. So fighting right the way down to the checkered flag. And indeed, Gurrier does pit John Monroe on the line. So John won't be too pleased with that, but he had an awful lot of fun, I'm sure, in that fight. That was for 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th places. John Davies dropped down the order in the second half of that race, only managing 17th place. But it is a race win, a perfectly judged race win, you've got to say, for JJ Clements, and I think he's pretty pleased with that. A very expressive celebration for JJ. But he timed that one perfectly, sat behind Alan Henderson for the first half of the race, and once he made his move, he never looked back and held on to take not exactly a comfortable win. The eventual winning margin was just over 1/10 of a second, but a win nonetheless for Clements. 2nd place Henderson, 3rd is George Lyne, 4th for Simon Goddard with the fastest lap. You can see highlighted in yellow. Liam Murphy 5th, with Brindle, Aspinall, Coombs, Irving and Tamplin rounding out the top 10. Greensmith gets a pair of 12th place finishes from the weekend. Gary Townsend with a good 13th place in the 2nd race. Further down the order, Andy Bailey, Ray Worley, Jim Hart, Michael Lawson and Annalise Ferrari all a lap down. But Jack Harding and Will Chappell were unfortunate retirees. And of course, James Blake Baldwin did not start the race at all and will head to the next round of the championship with a lot of work to do. But it has been an absolutely fantastic opening meeting for the season for the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. We're in for, without a doubt, a hugely competitive season. And if anything, this opening meeting at Silverstone has raised more questions than it's had answered. But still, fantastic racing, and we look forward to more of the same through the rest of the season. Here are the championship standings. It's Alan Henderson from JJ Clements by just 2 points. Of course, as expected, things very tight in the early stages here. Simon Goddard, Liam Murphy and George Lyne round out the top 5.